Hey everybody, so this is the second part of our quarter one review. We're going to start at 9 and go to 18 today. So what are we doing now? We're taking some of those skills we learned from like the first few weeks and it's solving equations. This is the basis of most algebra that we do is we're solving for that unknown variable. What do we do to start off with? Well, they want us to first practice what's this distributive property. Remember distributive property? It's kind of like having you and your brother or you and your sister in a house and your parents are outside and they can't just give you $5 because then your sister or your brother would be upset. So if you're going to distribute something inside the house or inside the parentheses, you need to make sure that you give it to each person equally. So if we have a 5 outside, you have to distribute that 5 to the q. So 5 times q. And then you also have to distribute it over here to the 3. So 5 times 3. So you end up with 5q plus 15. That's a distributive property. Next thing they want us to do is remember that we have the ability, we shouldn't be afraid of fractions. We have the ability to manipulate fractions and do things with them. This one here has a binomial, an numerator, and a single denominator. We know that we are allowed to take that fraction and break it up into two pieces. What are they asking us to do? Write this fraction below as a sum or difference. So we have a sum symbol, a plus sign, and all they want us to do is show it as two separate fractions. We can take that denominator and split it up to each fraction, and then we just take each term up above and separate them out. We still have 3x plus 7, 1 with its denominator, and then the 7 over the 4. You've done it. Great job. Now, if we look at the next one, this is what we did the very last question from our first part of our review. They said simplify the algebraic expression by combining like terms. First off, do we have like terms? So we look at the variables. Both variables have the same base, that's x. Are they both raised to the same power? Yes. Yes, they are. So if you have 4 of those things and 18 of the same things, how many do you have? Add it up. What are those things? They're x squares because it's the same variable raised to the same power. 12 is actually starting to solve some of these equations now. So remember that we said equations are always like little scales. What we do to one side, we always have to do to the other. And there's rules for all of this, and we need to know those rules. So first off, if we take a look at this, our variable is the negative x. Remember, that's a -1 being multiplied by x. We need to move everything else to the other side of the equal sign. So in order to move a -2, well, the addition / subtraction property of equality says we can do that. Simply add the reciprocal of what you see. So we have a -2, add a +2 to both sides. Now you have a -x equals 5. Great. Is this x by itself? No, it's not. It's being multiplied. So the multiplication / division property of equality says whatever we multiply or divide one side by, we can do the same to the other. So we need to get rid of a -1, divide both sides by -1. These negatives cancel and you're left with an x, and +5 divided by a -5. Sorry, +5 divided by a -1 is a -5. And you're done. Are you? Check your answer. Take that -5, plug it back in. -5 times a -1 is a +5. +5 minus 2 is 3. You can check your work. Look at this next one, 13. It's the same thing. We just covered it. Apply the same basis. You need the x by itself. You need to move the 9 over first. Use your properties. And then you need to figure out, well, what's being done to that x? Is that x by itself? It's not. So use the reciprocal property. Get rid of it. Here's one that's a little interesting. Take a look. We have a fraction here. I'm going to give you a separate one over here. So as we look at this, we need to do what? Move the 1. So you add 1 to both sides. Remember, it is just like that scale. So now you have a 5. Y over 5 equals 3. Now, look, our variable is stuck in a fraction. In order to get rid of it, multiply by its reciprocal. Multiplication property is the opposite of division, so we're multiplying by 5. Cancels out these denominators. What you do to one side, you do to the other. So y is equal to 15. Don't believe it? Check your work. 15 divided by 5 is 3. 3 minus 1 is 2. It works. It's that easy to check your work. 15 is the same thing, only this time, look, you have to combine some like terms first. So you can rewrite this problem now. 3x plus 6x is a 9x. Minus 7 equals 11. Now it's an easy two-step equation. You can solve for x. Same thing for 16, but now the variables are on the other side. It doesn't change. Doesn't change your answer. Here we go. They're taking here and making it a little harder for us. We have to distribute that net 3 to both pieces first. So 3 times 7 is 21x. 3 times negative 2 is a negative 6. So you end up with 21x minus 6 equals 99. And then you can solve for x from there. 18, which is where we'll stop today. This is the one that's a little bit different. It's a proportion. And if you remember proportions from 7th grade, in order to solve them, some of you call it the butterfly method. Some of you call it cross multiplication. It doesn't matter what you call it as long as you do it. So in order to do this, okay, we got to cross multiply this way, cross multiply that way. So 12 times x is a 12x. And then you have 3 times 4 is 12. Now you have a super simple equation. Solve it. Divide by 12. Divide by 12. X equals 1. Don't believe it? Check it. Okay, take the 1, plug it in. 1/4 equals 3 over 12. Is that true? Is it? I don't know. Figure it out. You guys, it's simplifying ratios, okay? 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 12 4 times. So yeah, 1/4 equals 1/4. Don't let things like this confuse you. You can always check your work. Now get busy and finish the next section of your review.